I, 32, was married to Liam for 8 years. For most of that time, I thought we were a team. I managed our budget with careful precision. I made sure the mortgage was paid. I clipped coupons and planned our meals a week in advance. I did all of this because Liam was a dreamer, and dreamers, I was told, should not be burdened with practical things. He had ideas for businesses that never quite took off. He had friends who always needed a small loan. He was too generous to refuse. Our finances were a constant source of quiet stress for me, a humming anxiety beneath the surface of our life together. The biggest point of contention was always his family's money, or rather, the promise of it. His mother, Eleanor, treated me with a kind of polite disdain. It was the type of coldness you could never quite call out. She would praise my cooking while mentioning how Liam used to love extravagant restaurant meals. She would compliment our modest home while talking about the grand houses her friends' sons bought for their wives. The message was always clear. I was holding her brilliant son back. I was the anchor weighing down his magnificent ship. Liam had received an inheritance from his grandfather a few years ago. He was very clear about it. "It's not much, Anna," he told me one night, his voice low and serious. "It's about $20,000. Grandpa wanted me to have a little safety net. A rainy day fund." I accepted this without question. It was his family's money. It felt right that he should have something of his own, separate from our joint struggles. I supported his decision to put it in a separate savings account. "For a real emergency," he'd said, and I had nodded, proud of his rare display of financial caution. That was the story I believed for 3 years. A story of a small, protected nest egg for a future disaster. The pressure from his mother had been getting worse. Every family dinner was a performance. I had to defend our choices. Why had we not taken a vacation to Europe? Why was I still driving a 10-year-old car? Liam would sit there, looking uncomfortable but never defending me. He would just shrug and say, "Anna is very careful with money." It was not a compliment. It was an accusation. He was painting me as the warden of our small, beige life. He was making me the villain in a story where he was the captive prince. I felt a growing sense of isolation, a feeling that I was the only one rowing while he and his mother were drilling holes in the bottom of the boat. The last few months had been particularly hard. Liam was distant and irritable. He spent more and more time on his phone, smiling at screens I was never allowed to see. When I asked who he was texting, he would snap, "It's just work stuff. You wouldn't understand." I tried to believe him. I tried to tell myself that the financial strain was getting to him, that his failed ventures were making him bitter. I wanted to keep the peace. I loved the man I had married, or at least the man I thought I had married. I kept telling myself that this was a rough patch, that all couples go through them. I just had to be more patient, more understanding, more of everything he seemed to think I was not. I remember the day it all broke. It was a Tuesday. I had just finished paying the bills. Our main checking account was dangerously low again. I had transferred money from my personal savings to cover the electric bill, a small act of financial secrecy I had grown accustomed to. I felt a familiar knot of resentment tighten in my stomach. I was sacrificing my own small safety net to keep our shared life afloat, while his rainy day fund sat untouched for a future, more important storm. It felt deeply unfair. But I pushed the feeling down, as I always did. Keeping the peace was more important. Or so I thought. I made dinner. Liam came home late. He barely touched his food. He was glued to his phone again, a small, secret smile playing on his lips. "Good day at work?" I asked, my voice sounding more hopeful than I felt. He just grunted in response, not looking up. The silence in our house was no longer comfortable. It was heavy. It was filled with all the things we were not saying to each other. I went to bed early that night, feeling a profound sense of loneliness. I lay in the dark, listening to the sound of his thumbs tapping on his phone screen from the living room. It was a sound that had become the soundtrack to my failing marriage. The next morning, the illusion shattered. I woke up to a notification on my phone. It was not from a friend. It was not a news alert. It was a message from a number I did not recognize. I almost ignored it, thinking it was just spam. But something made me open it. The words on the screen felt like a physical blow. They were simple, cruel, and devastatingly clear. "He's leaving you tomorrow. Get ready to pack your bags." My heart stopped. I read the words again. And again. They did not change. They did not soften. They just sat there, stark and brutal on the bright screen of my phone. For a moment, I could not breathe. The air in the room felt thick and heavy. I looked over at Liam, sleeping peacefully beside me. He looked so innocent, so unaware of the bomb that had just gone off in my life. The man I had spent years protecting and supporting was a stranger. The life I had worked so hard to build was a lie. The future I had been saving for was not mine to have. Betrayal is a cold thing. It seeps into your bones and chills you from the inside out. There was no screaming. There was no crying. There was just a sudden, terrifying calm. This was not a rough patch. This was the end. The message was not an accident. It was a threat. It was a power move from a woman who thought she had already won. She wanted to humiliate me. She wanted me to be a sobbing mess when Liam delivered his final speech. She wanted to picture me, broken and pathetic, packing my things. A new feeling started to replace the shock. It was not sadness. It was anger. A deep, quiet, and focused anger. They were not just ending a marriage. They were trying to erase me. I stood up and walked to the bathroom, my movements slow and deliberate. I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was tired. She had dark circles under her eyes. But her eyes were not filled with tears. They were clear. They were determined. I thought about the text message. "Get ready to pack your bags." It was so arrogant. So dismissive. As if I was just a temporary inconvenience to be swept aside. I thought about Liam's secret smiles. I thought about his mother's cutting remarks. I thought about my dwindling savings account. Then I thought about his rainy day fund. The $20,000 he was so carefully protecting. It was a small amount in the grand scheme of things, but it was his. And the idea of him walking away with me, while I was left with debt and a broken heart, was unacceptable. It was not about the money itself. It was about the principle. It was about the sheer, galling injustice of it all. He was not going to get away with this. Not completely. I made a decision in that cold bathroom, staring at my own reflection. I was not going to cry. I was going to get even. I went back into the bedroom and picked up my phone. The message was still there. I did not delete it. I saved the number. I took a screenshot. It was evidence. I was not sure what I would do with it yet, but I knew I needed it. My mind started working, moving past the pain and into the realm of strategy. The woman who sent the text thought she was in control. She thought she held all the cards. She was about to find out how wrong she was. I was done keeping the peace. I was done being the understanding wife. A different woman was born in that moment. A woman who was about to cause a storm of her very own. I, 32, knew I had to be smart. Panicking would only play into their hands. Liam was still asleep, his breathing soft and even. The sight of him, so peaceful after orchestrating my life's demolition, filled me with a cold resolve. I slipped out of the bedroom, my laptop in hand. I went to the kitchen, the one room in the house that felt completely mine. The room where I performed the thankless domestic labor that kept our lives running. I sat down at the small table where I paid our bills and opened the laptop. My fingers trembled slightly as I typed in the web address for our bank. I had access to all our joint accounts, the mortgage account, the checking account, the credit card accounts. But I had never once tried to look at the special savings account he had set up for the inheritance. He had given me the login information years ago in a token gesture of transparency. "So, you know it's there," he had said. "But we don't touch it." I had respected that boundary. It was his family money, his safety net. Now, it was a loose thread in the tapestry of his lies, and I was about to pull it. I navigated to the login page for that specific account. My heart was pounding in my chest. What if I was wrong? What if it really was just $20,000? What if my anger was misplaced? I typed in the username and password he had given me. My hands were shaking so much I had to type the password twice. The page loaded. My breath caught in my throat. I stared at the screen, my eyes wide with disbelief. It was not $20,000. Not even close. The initial deposit, made 3 years ago, was for $1,250,000. I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. I had to grip the edge of the table to steady myself. $1.25 million. All this time, while I was meticulously budgeting for groceries and moving money to cover a $50 shortfall, he had been sitting on a fortune. He had watched me worry. He had let me sacrifice. He had played the part of the struggling artist while he was secretly a millionaire. The betrayal was so much deeper, so much more profound than I could have ever imagined. It was not just about the affair. It was about years of calculated deception. My shock quickly turned back into that cold, hard anger. I scrolled down the transaction history. The first year, the account was untouched. Then the withdrawals began. Small at first. A few $100s here and there. Then they got bigger. $5,000. $10,000. I started cross-referencing the dates with my memory. A $5,000 withdrawal on the date he claimed he was at a work conference in another city. A $10,000 withdrawal on the week he said he was visiting a sick friend. The lies were all there, documented in neat, digital columns. Then I saw the more recent transactions. Thousands of dollars spent at a high-end jewelry store. A charge for a suite at a luxury hotel downtown. A series of expensive dinners at restaurants he had always told me were too stuffy for our tastes. The picture was becoming brutally clear. He was not just having an affair. He was funding a whole second life. A glamorous, expensive life with another woman. All paid for by his secret fortune, while I was at home trying to make our budget stretch for another month. The name on the text message, the unknown number, now had a face. A very expensive face. I felt a surge of nausea. He had not just lied to me.
He had mocked me.
Every time I said we could not afford something, every time I suggested a cheaper option, he must have been laughing inside. He had made me the gatekeeper of a poverty that was completely artificial. He had used my practicality and my trust as a cover for his grand deception. He and his new girlfriend were probably laughing at me. The sensible, boring wife holding the purse strings, completely unaware that the purse was nearly empty while he had a treasure chest hidden under the floorboards. I printed everything. Every single page of the transaction history. The initial deposit slip. The statements showing the large, unexplained withdrawals. I laid the papers out on the kitchen table like a general planning a battle. The numbers told a story of profound betrayal. The remaining balance in the account was still substantial. Just over $700,000. He and his girlfriend had burned through almost $500,000 in less than 2 years. They were planning to drain the rest, and then he would deliver his "I'm leaving you" speech. They would ride off into the sunset, and I would be left with a nearly empty joint checking account, a mortgage, and 8 years of my life wasted. A new thought struck me, a detail that was both a blessing and a curse. When he set up the account, he had put my name on it. I remembered the conversation vaguely. He had said something about it being easier for estate planning. Just in case something happens to me, he had said with a dramatic sigh. I want to make sure you're taken care of. The irony was so bitter it tasted like acid. He had put my name on the account as a meaningless gesture, a way to further sell his lie of being a caring husband. He had made me a joint owner of the very account he was using to betray me. He had given me the key to his secret kingdom, never once believing I would have the nerve to use it. I had to talk to someone. My mind was racing, and I needed an outside perspective. I grabbed my phone and went into the pantry, closing the door behind me. I dialed the number of my best friend, Maria. She was a lawyer, sharp and unsentimental. She answered on the second ring, her voice groggy. "Anna? It's 6 in the morning. Is everything okay?" I took a deep breath. "No," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Nothing is okay. I need your help." I told her everything. The text message. The secret account. The $1 million. The spending. I spoke in a low, urgent torrent of words. Maria was silent for a long moment after I finished. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. "Anna," she finally said, her voice no longer sleepy but wide awake and alert. "You need to do exactly what I say. Do not confront him. Do not show him you know anything. We need to act first." Her calm, authoritative tone was exactly what I needed. It cut through the fog of my anger and gave me a clear path forward. "What do I do?" I asked. "First," she said, "confirm your legal standing. As a joint account holder, you likely have the right to withdraw funds. But we need to be 100% sure. Second, you need to open a new bank account in your name only, at a completely different bank, today. And third, you need to be prepared to move that money before he does." Her words solidified my resolve. This was not just about getting even anymore. This was about survival. They had a plan to leave me with nothing. I had to have a plan to protect myself. "He's planning to leave me tomorrow," I whispered into the phone. "That's what her message said." Maria's voice was firm. "Then we don't have much time," she said. "He gave you the weapon, Anna. You need to use it." We talked for another 20 minutes, outlining a step-by-step plan. I wrote it all down on the back of a grocery receipt. Open new account. Verify withdrawal rights. Transfer funds. Secure evidence. It was a declaration of war. After I hung up with Maria, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. The shock and hurt were still there, simmering beneath the surface, but they were now fuel for my actions. I went back to the kitchen table and looked at the pile of bank statements. This was my leverage. This was my power. The woman who sent the text thought she was ending my story. She had no idea she had just given me the perfect beginning for a new one. I heard the floorboards creak upstairs. Liam was waking up. I quickly gathered the papers, hid them in a folder, and tucked them into my work bag. I made coffee, my movements calm and measured. When he came into the kitchen, I smiled at him. It was the most difficult and most satisfying smile I had ever faked in my life. "Morning," he said, stretching. He seemed cheerful. Too cheerful. It was the cheerfulness of a man who believed he was one day away from freedom. "You're up early," he commented, pouring himself a coffee. I just nodded. "I have a lot to do today," I said, my voice even. He did not notice a thing. He was too wrapped up in his own world, his own plans. He had underestimated me for our entire marriage. He thought I was passive. He thought I was weak. He thought I would crumble. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. The game had changed. I was no longer a player who followed the rules. I was the one who was about to flip the entire board. My first step was to confirm my legal access to the money. Maria had been clear about this. Assumptions were dangerous. I needed certainty. I called the bank's customer service line from my car during my lunch break. My heart hammered against my ribs as I went through the security questions. I gave them my name, my date of birth, my social security number. The representative put me on hold to pull up the account details. The hold music was a generic, upbeat tune that felt jarringly out of place with the tension coiling in my stomach. Finally, the representative came back on the line. "Yes, ma'am," she said in a professional, detached voice. "I have the account information here. You are listed as a joint owner with full rights of survivorship and withdrawal." I closed my eyes in relief. Full rights of withdrawal. The words were a green light. "So, to be clear," I said, needing to hear it one more time, "I can withdraw any or all of the funds from this account without the other owner's signature?" The woman paused for a second. "Yes, ma'am," she confirmed. "As a joint owner, you have unrestricted access to the funds in the account." I thanked her and hung up, a wave of adrenaline washing over me. He had made a colossal mistake. In his arrogance, in his desire to create a facade of a loving husband, he had handed me complete control over his secret fortune. He had assumed I was too timid, too trusting, too ignorant to ever use that power. He thought my name on the account was just a decoration. Now, it was my salvation. I had the legal right to take every single penny. The question was no longer if I could, but when. My next stop was a different bank, one on the other side of town where I knew Liam would never go. Walking in, I felt like a spy in a foreign country. I was nervous, constantly looking over my shoulder. I sat down with a personal banker, a kind-looking woman named Sarah. "I'd like to open a new checking and savings account," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "In my name only," Sarah nodded and started the process, asking for my identification and filling out the forms. She was friendly and professional, completely unaware of the domestic drama that had led me to her desk. As she typed, she made small talk. "Are you moving to the area?" she asked. I shook my head. "No," I said simply. "Just reorganizing my finances." It was the most colossal understatement of my life. Reorganizing my finances. I was dismantling my old life and building a new one, all from this small, sterile office. I provided all the necessary information and signed the paperwork. Within 30 minutes, I had a new account number, a temporary debit card, and the wire transfer instructions. I had a safe place to land. I walked out of the bank feeling a little lighter. I had taken a concrete step. I was not just a victim anymore. I was a strategist. That afternoon, I decided to do some more digging. I needed to understand the other woman. The woman who felt so secure in her position that she would send such a cruel text message. I had her phone number. A quick search online linked the number to a social media profile. Her name was Chloe. Her profile was public. It was a shrine to a life of leisure and luxury. Pictures of her by a resort pool, a cocktail in her hand. Pictures of her in designer clothes, posing in front of expensive restaurants. Pictures of her wearing a very specific diamond necklace, one that matched a recent $15,000 charge from the inheritance account. I scrolled through her photos, a cold knot forming in my stomach. It was all there. The trips Liam claimed were for work. The weekends he was supposedly helping friends. He was in the background of some of the photos, his face partially obscured, but I recognized his watch in one picture, the sleeve of his favorite jacket in another. They were not even being particularly careful. They were arrogant. They believed they were untouchable. Then I saw the most damning evidence of all. I scrolled through the comments on a photo of Chloe showing off a new designer handbag. There were dozens of fawning comments from her friends. And then I saw it. A comment from my mother-in-law, Eleanor. "You look so happy, my dear," it said. Glowing. The breath left my body. It was not just Liam. His mother was in on it. She knew about Chloe. She approved. All those little digs at me, all those comments about me holding Liam back, they were not just casual cruelty. They were part of a coordinated campaign. She wanted me out of the picture so her son could be with this younger, more exciting woman. The woman who would spend his money freely. The woman who was, in Eleanor's eyes, a better match for her perfect son. The betrayal was a family affair. I felt a rage so pure and so intense it almost made me dizzy. Eleanor had sat at my dinner table. She had eaten the food I cooked. She had held my hand and told me I was a good, sensible girl, while actively encouraging her son's affair. She was not just an enabler. She was a co-conspirator. This new knowledge changed everything. My plan was no longer just about protecting myself from Liam. It was about dismantling the entire rotten structure of his lies, a structure his mother had helped him build. I needed to test the waters. I needed to see how he would react to a small probe. That evening, when Liam got home, I decided to bring up money. I waited until we were sitting in the living room, a tense silence hanging between us. "Liam," I began, keeping my voice as neutral as possible. "I was looking at our budget today. Things are really tight this month," he sighed dramatically, not looking away from his phone. "I know, Anna," he said, his voice laced with annoyance. "You don't have to remind me. I was just thinking," I continued, pushing a little further, "about that rainy day fund. Your inheritance. Maybe now is the time to use a little of it. Just to give us some breathing room." The change in his demeanor was immediate. He put his phone down and looked at me, his eyes cold. "Absolutely not," he said sharply. "What did I tell you? That money is for a real emergency, not for paying the electric bill." I feigned confusion. "But Liam, this feels like an emergency. We're struggling." He stands up, his agitation growing. This is a side of him I have rarely seen, but it feels terrifyingly real. It is the real him. It is my family's money, Anna, he says, his voice rising. It is for me to decide how it is used. I don't know why you are suddenly so obsessed with it. He is trying to make me feel small. He is trying to make me feel greedy. I am not obsessed, I reply, my own voice remaining calm. I am just being practical. You are the one who is being emotional about this.
He scoffs at that.
Emotional? I am being responsible. That money is my safety net, and you will not touch it. The finality in his voice is chilling. He is drawing a line in the sand, protecting the very funds he is using to betray me. He thinks he is shutting down the conversation. What he is actually doing is confirming my every suspicion. He is revealing his true colors. He is showing me the contempt he holds for me and our shared life. The man I married is gone. This angry, deceptive stranger is all that is left. Fine, Liam, I say, backing down for now. It was just a suggestion. He picks up his phone again, already dismissing me. Well, it was a bad one, he mutters. I get up and walk away. I have the answer I need. He will never willingly give me a dime. He is guarding that account with his life, because it is his ticket to a new one. The confrontation, as small as it was, solidified my plan. There would be no negotiation. There would be no tearful goodbyes. There would only be the quiet, methodical execution of my own escape plan. He had drawn his battle lines. Now I would draw mine. The next day felt like the longest day of my life. Every minute that ticked by was a minute closer to Liam's planned departure and a minute closer to my own preemptive strike. I went to work and tried to act normal, but my mind was a whirlwind of checklists and countdowns. I had to time everything perfectly. I cannot transfer the money too early, or he might get an alert and block the transaction. I had to wait until the last possible moment. The plan was to do it late at night, after he was asleep, the night before he planned to ruin my life. I decided I needed one more piece of confirmation. I needed to hear the scale of the lie from someone else's lips. I called my brother-in-law, Mark. He and Liam were not particularly close, but Mark was a decent man. He was grounded and straightforward, the complete opposite of his brother. I knew he would not be a part of Liam's deception. I framed the call as something innocent. "Hi, Mark," I said, injecting a cheerful tone into my voice. "I was hoping you could help me with something. I want to plan a surprise for Liam, a big trip or something, and I was thinking of using some of his inheritance money to fund it." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Wow, Anna," Mark said, sounding impressed. "A big trip? That's a great idea. And a good use for that inheritance. Lord knows he's not doing anything else with it. This was my opening." "Well, that's the thing," I said, feigning uncertainty. He's always been so vague about the amount. He said it was around $20,000. "That's not really enough for a big trip," Mark laughed. A loud, genuine laugh. "20,000? He said, still chuckling. "Is that what he told you?" Oh, that's classic Liam. Always downplaying things. My hand tightened around the phone. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice a little shaky. "Anna, Grandpa left him over $1 million, Mark said, his tone matter-of-fact. "We were all there when the will was read. It was the talk of the family for months. It was all liquid, too. No complicated trusts or anything. He got the check and deposited it. Why on earth would he tell you it was only $20,000? The confirmation was like a punch to the gut, even though I already knew the truth. Hearing it from a third party made it so much more real, so much more sickening. "I have no idea," I managed to say, my voice hollow. "He's always been so private about it," Mark sighed. "That's my brother for you," he said. "Look, Anna, it's his money, but that's a crazy lie to tell your own wife. $1 million is life-changing money. You guys shouldn't be struggling if he's sitting on that." His words were meant to be supportive, but they felt like little knives, twisting in an already deep wound. We were struggling. Or rather, I was struggling. He was living a secret life of luxury. "Well, thank you, Mark," I said, trying to regain my composure. "This gives me a lot to think about." We ended the call, and I sat in my car in the office parking lot, the world seeming to tilt on its axis. The sheer audacity of the lie was breathtaking. He had not just shaved off a zero. He had constructed an entirely false reality for me to live in. He had made me a participant in my own impoverishment. My resolve hardened into something unbreakable. He was not just going to leave me. He and his mother and his girlfriend were planning to humiliate and abandon me. They had planned to leave me financially ruined while they started their new life on money that was, legally, half mine. That evening, Liam was in a strangely good mood. He brought home flowers. They were cheap carnations from the grocery store, but it was the first time he had bought me flowers in years. It was a pathetic, transparent attempt to soften the blow he was planning to deliver the next day. It made my skin crawl. He was acting out the final scene of a play where I was the only one who did not know the script. He suggested we watch a movie.
He made popcorn.
He put his arm around me on the couch. It felt like a stranger's arm, heavy and unwelcome. I played along. I smiled. I laughed at the right moments in the movie. I pretended that everything was normal. Inside, I was counting down the hours. Every minute that passed was a small victory. Every shared smile was a lie I was feeding back to him. He thought he was lulling me into a false sense of security. He had no idea that I was the one in control. I was the one with the plan. I was the one holding all the cards. He was a pawn in a game he did not even know he was playing. Later that night, as we were getting ready for bed, he turned to me. "You know I love you, right, Anna?" he said, his voice soft. The words, which once would have made my heart soar, now landed with a thud. They were empty. They were a lie. A final, cruel twist of the knife before he pulled it out for good. I looked him in the eye. "I know," I said, my own voice a perfect imitation of sincerity. It was the last lie I would ever tell him. He smiled, satisfied, and rolled over to go to sleep. I lay in the dark, my eyes wide open, listening to his breathing. I waited. 1 hour. Then 2. I waited until I was sure he was in a deep sleep. Then, I quietly slipped out of bed. It was time. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. The darkness felt like a cloak, hiding me as I moved through the rooms of the life I was about to dismantle. I went to my office, a small room I had carved out for myself, and closed the door. I did not turn on the light. The glow from my laptop screen was enough. I sat down, took a deep breath, and opened the bank's website. My hands were steady now. The fear and uncertainty had been replaced by a cold, clear purpose. I logged into the inheritance account. The balance was still there. $712,453.81. I looked at the number for a long moment. It represented years of lies. It represented a future that had been stolen from me. And now, it represented my own escape. I had the new account information ready. I had the wire transfer page open. I meticulously typed in the account number for my new, private bank account. I double-checked it. Then I triple-checked it. There could be no mistakes. I moved to the field for the transfer amount. I paused. A part of me, a small, scared part that still remembered the woman I used to be, whispered that I should only take half. That was the fair thing to do. That was what the law would probably grant me in a divorce. But then I thought of the text message. "Get ready to pack your bags." I thought of Chloe's smug photos. I thought of Eleanor's approving comments. They were not planning to be fair. They were planning to leave me with nothing. Fairness was a luxury I could no longer afford. My finger hovered over the keyboard. I was not just taking the money. I was taking back my life. I was taking back my dignity. I was taking back the years I had spent worrying and sacrificing for a man who was laughing at me behind my back. This was not theft. This was restitution. This was justice. I typed in the full amount. $712,453.81. I clicked the box to confirm the transfer. A final confirmation screen popped up. "Are you sure you want to transfer these funds?" it asked. I took one last, deep breath. And I clicked confirm. A small message appeared on the screen. "Your transfer has been initiated. It will be processed within the next business day." It was done. The money was moving. It was out of his reach and on its way to me. I logged out of the account and cleared my browser history. I shut down the laptop. I sat in the dark for a long time, the silence of the house pressing in on me. I did not feel triumph. I did not feel joy. I felt a profound and heavy sense of finality. The old life was over. The new one had just begun. I went back to bed. Liam was still sleeping, snoring softly. I slid under the covers, careful not to wake him. I lay on my side, facing away from him, my body rigid. I did not sleep. I watched the numbers on the alarm clock change. 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. I was waiting for the dawn. I was waiting for the fallout. I knew that when the sun came up, my world would explode. But for the first time in a very long time, I was not afraid. I was ready. I had built my own lifeboat. I had my hand on the oar, and I was ready to row away from the sinking ship of my marriage. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. The sun was just beginning to streak the sky with pale light. I felt a strange, hollow calm. The adrenaline of the night had worn off, leaving behind a quiet resolve. I got up, showered, and dressed. I chose a professional outfit, something that made me feel strong and capable. I put on makeup a little more than usual. It felt like armor. I went downstairs and made coffee, my movements automatic. I was just going through the motions, waiting for the inevitable detonation. Liam came downstairs a little while later. He was still wrapped in that same false cheerfulness from the night before. "Morning, sunshine," he said, kissing me on the cheek. The gesture felt grotesque. I did not flinch. I just handed him a cup of coffee. "Big day today," he said, a meaningful glint in his eye. Lots of important meetings. I knew what he meant. The important meeting was with me. It was the meeting where he would end our marriage. "Yes," I said, my voice flat. "A very big day." I left for work before he did. I needed to be out of the house. I needed space. As I drove to my office, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. It was a text from Maria. "Is it done?" she asked. "It's done," I typed back. A reply came instantly. "Good. Now hold on tight. It's going to be a bumpy ride." She was right. The calm I felt was the calm before the storm. I knew it was coming. I just did not know exactly when it would hit. I tried to work, but I could not focus. I just stared at my computer screen, replaying the events of the last 2 days in my mind. The text message, the bank statements, the late-night transfer. It all felt surreal, like something that had happened to someone else. But it was real, and the consequences were coming. Around 10 in the morning, my phone buzzed again. This time it was not Maria. It was the number from the day before. The number belonging to Chloe. My heart leaped into my throat. This was it. I opened the message. It was short and to the point. "He's on his way to tell you now. Hope you have your bags packed." The sheer arrogance of it was stunning. She could not even wait for him to do it. She had to get in one last, triumphant jab. She was savoring this moment. She was picturing me reading her text, my world crumbling around me. She thought she was delivering the killing blow. I looked at her message. I looked at the smug, cruel words on my screen. And for the first time that day, I smiled. A real, genuine smile. My fingers flew across the screen as I typed my reply. I did not hesitate. I did not second-guess myself. I knew exactly what to say. My message was even shorter than hers. "Check your bank account." I hit send. The message was delivered instantly. A profound sense of satisfaction washed over me. It was a feeling so pure and so powerful it almost took my breath away. I had just lit the fuse. Now, all I had to do was wait for the explosion. It did not take long. Less than 5 minutes later, my phone started ringing. It was Liam. His name flashed on the screen, angry and demanding. I stared at it, my heart starting to pound again. I let it go to voicemail. I was not ready to talk to him yet. I wanted him to stew. I wanted him to panic. A few seconds later, it rang again. Liam again. I ignored it again. Then, a new number started calling. I did not recognize it, but I had a pretty good idea who it was.
Chloe.
I ignored her call too. The calls kept coming, one after another. Liam.
Chloe.
Liam.
Chloe.
It was a frantic, desperate symphony of their panic. They were scrambling. They were confused. Their perfect plan had just blown up in their faces. I imagined the scene. Liam, on his way to my office to deliver his grand speech, getting a frantic call from Chloe. Her screaming at him. Him, confused, trying to log into the bank account. The dawning horror on his face as he saw the balance. 0. It was a beautiful thought. After about the 10th missed call, a voicemail notification popped up. It was from Liam. I took a deep breath and played it. His voice was not calm or composed. It was a strangled, high-pitched shriek. Anna, where is the money? Where is my money? Call me back right now. This is not a joke. You call me back right now. There was pure, undiluted panic in his voice. The man who was going to calmly and coolly end our marriage was having a complete and total meltdown. It was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. Then, another call came in. It was from a number I knew all too well. Eleanor. My mother-in-law. So he had called his mommy for help. Of course he had. I ignored her call as well. Let her worry. Let them all worry. They had created this mess. They deserved to wallow in it. I sat at my desk, listening to the frantic buzzing of my phone, and I felt a sense of power I had never felt before. I was in complete control, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. Finally, I knew I could not put it off any longer. I had to face him, but I was going to do it on my terms, in a place where I felt safe. I sent him a text message. I am in my office. We can talk here. I knew he would come. He had no choice. He wanted his money, or what he thought was his money. I spent the next 20 minutes preparing. I pulled out the folder with all the printed evidence. The bank statements. The screenshots of Chloe's social media. The comment from Eleanor. I laid them out on my desk, a neat and damning collection of their betrayal. When he burst through my office door, his face was pale and slick with sweat. His eyes were wild. He looked nothing like the suave, charming man he pretended to be. He looked like a cornered animal. This is where it all changes. My calm observation shifts. I am no longer just watching. I am in the center of the storm. Where is it? He screams, his voice cracking. He doesn't say hello. He doesn't ask how I am. Just that one frantic question. He is pointing a shaking finger at me. The air in my small office feels electric. I feel a strange detachment, as if I'm watching this scene from above. I lean back in my chair. I feel my own heartbeat, a slow, steady drum against the frantic rhythm of his panic. Where is what, Liam? I ask. My voice is quiet. It is deliberate. It feels like a weapon. Every calm word I speak seems to make him more agitated. Don't play dumb with me, Anna, he yells. He takes a step closer to my desk. The money. My inheritance. It's gone. The whole account is empty. What did you do? He looks around my office as if he expects to see stacks of cash piled in the corner. He is completely unhinged. I look at him. Really look at him. The man I loved is not there. This person is a stranger, consumed by greed and fear. I moved it, I say. The words are simple. They are honest. And they hit him like a physical blow. He staggers back a step, his mouth falling open. You what? He whispers, his voice full of disbelief. You can't do that. That's my money. My family's money. He is trying to reassert the old rules. The rules where he is in control. Where I am the obedient, sensible wife. Those rules no longer apply. I gesture to the papers on my desk. Our money, actually. I say, my voice still quiet. I am in control now. This feeling is new, and it is powerful. According to the bank, my name on the account gives me full withdrawal rights. You should have read the fine print when you added me to it. It was a very careless mistake. His eyes dart to the papers on my desk. He sees the bank logos. He sees the columns of numbers. He sees the truth laid out in black and white. His face, which was pale with panic, now flushes with rage. You had no right, he shouts, his voice echoing in the small room. I'm calling the police. This is theft. I almost laugh. The hypocrisy is staggering. He was planning to leave me with nothing, and he has the audacity to accuse me of theft. Go ahead, Liam, I say. Call them. I'd be very interested to hear you explain to them why you lied to your wife for years about $1 million inheritance. I'm sure they'd also be fascinated to see these statements. I slide one of the pages across the desk towards him. It's the one showing the $15,000 charge for the diamond necklace. And these pictures, I push a screenshot of Chloe wearing the necklace towards him. I wonder if your girlfriend, Chloe, knows that you'll have to ask for that back now. His eyes widen in horror as he looks at the evidence. The anger drains out of him, replaced by a dawning, sickening realization. He knows he is caught.
He has no moves left.
The game is over. How did you know? He asks, his voice barely a whisper. He slumps into the chair opposite my desk, his body deflating like a punctured balloon. He looks small. He looks pathetic. She told me. I say simply. Your girlfriend. She texted me yesterday to let me know you were leaving me today. She seemed to think I should have my bags packed. It was very thoughtful of her to give me a heads up. It gave me time to make my own arrangements. The look on his face is a mixture of fury and disbelief. Fury at me, and fury at the woman who had just cost him a fortune. He put his head in his hands. Oh my God, he moans. What have you done? I lean forward, my voice dropping to a cold, hard whisper.
No, Liam, I say.
The question is, what have you done? You, and your mother, and your girlfriend. You plan to throw me away like a piece of trash. You plan to leave me with nothing. You underestimated me. You all did. And now you are going to pay the price for that. He looks up at me, his eyes pleading. For the first time, I see fear in them. Not fear of losing the money. Fear of me. It is a deeply satisfying sight. The confrontation was not over. Just as Liam was processing the totality of his defeat, my office door swung open again. This time it was Eleanor. She must have driven straight here after Liam's frantic call. Her face was a mask of righteous fury. She did not even acknowledge my presence at first. She rushed to Liam's side. Liam, darling, what is going on? She said, her voice dripping with concern. What has she done? Liam just shook his head, unable to speak. He looked broken. Eleanor turned her glare on me. You, she spat, her voice like ice. What did you do to my son? He called me hysterical. He said you stole his money. She stood there, regal and indignant, ready to defend her perfect boy from the wicked witch who had wronged him. She had no idea she was walking into a trap. I remained seated. My calm is a stark contrast to her theatrical rage. Hello, Eleanor. I say politely. I didn't steal his money. I moved our money into an account that he can't use to pay for his girlfriend's jewelry. I pick up the screenshot of Chloe's social media page and hold it up. Eleanor's eyes widen as she sees the picture of Chloe, happy and carefree. Her composure cracks for a fraction of a second. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammers, but there is no conviction in her voice. She is a terrible liar. Oh, I think you do, I say. I slide another piece of paper across the desk. It is the screenshot of her comment. You look so happy, my dear. Glowing, I read her own words back to her. Her face pales. She looks from the paper to me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. She is caught. The public face of the supportive mother-in-law has been ripped away, revealing the conniving enabler underneath. You knew, I state. It is not a question. You knew all about it. You sat in my home, you ate my food, and you encouraged him to betray me. You told me I was holding him back. I guess Chloe is more what you had in mind. Someone who would help him spend his fortune instead of helping him build a life. Eleanor flinches, as if I had slapped her. You have no right to speak to me that way, she says, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and humiliation. That money was for him. It was his birthright. You were never entitled to it. She is falling back on her sense of entitlement, the same toxic belief she instilled in her son. I was entitled to the truth, Eleanor. I counter, my voice rising slightly. I am no longer just calm. I am angry, and I am letting her see it. I was entitled to a faithful husband and a life that wasn't built on a mountain of lies. You helped him deceive me. You were his accomplice. So you don't get to stand here and act outraged. You are just as guilty as he is. Liam finally speaks up, his voice weak. Mom, just stop, he pleads. She knows everything. Eleanor ignores him. Her focus is entirely on me. Her hatred is a palpable force in the room. You will regret this, she hisses. I will make sure of it. You will not get away with this. It is an empty threat. The power has shifted. She knows it. I know it. Her threats are the last gasps of a dying queen whose kingdom has just crumbled. I think you'll find that I already have gotten away with it, I say, leaning back in my chair. The money is secure. A lawyer has been consulted. The life you and Liam planned with Chloe is over. It was a fun dream while it lasted, I'm sure. But now it's time to wake up. I look from Eleanor's horrified face to Liam's defeated one. Now, I have work to do. So, if you'll excuse me, I think it's time for you both to leave. For a long moment, nobody moves. Then, Eleanor grabs Liam's arm and pulls him towards the door, her face a thunderous mask of fury. They were defeated. And I had won. The aftermath was a series of quiet, satisfying conversations. The first was with my lawyer, who I met with the next day. Maria came with me. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Ms. Davis, reviewed the documents I had brought. The bank statements, the prenuptial agreement Liam and I had signed, and the screenshots. Your position is very strong, Ms. Davis said, her expression serious. The money was deposited into a joint account during the marriage. Legally, it's considered marital property, regardless of the source. Your husband's decision to hide the true amount and spend it on an extramarital affair will not play well for him in court. She explained that Liam could try to sue me to get the money back, but it would be a long, ugly, and expensive fight for him. A fight he likely could not afford now. His actions demonstrate a clear pattern of financial deception and dissipation of marital assets, she continued. By moving the money, you essentially protected the marital estate from further depletion. A judge will see that. Maria squeezed my hand under the table. The relief was immense. I had not just acted out of anger. I had made a sound legal move. What happens now? I asked. Now, Ms. Davis said with a small smile, we file for divorce. And we negotiate from a position of absolute strength. The second conversation was with Mark, my brother-in-law. He called me a few days later, his voice full of confusion and concern. Anna, what is going on? He asked. Liam and my mother are telling everyone you stole a fortune from him. They're making you sound like a monster. I took a deep breath. Mark had always been decent to me. He deserved the truth. Mark, I said. Liam lied to me. He lied to me for years. I told him everything. The real amount of the inheritance. The secret spending. The affair with Chloe. The text message. The involvement of his mother. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Oh my God, Anna, he finally said, his voice full of shock and disgust. I had no idea. $1 million? And my mom knew. She knew, I confirmed. She was encouraging it. I could hear him sigh, a heavy, weary sound. I am so sorry, Anna, he said, and I could tell he meant it. That is monstrous. I don't even have words. My own brother. My own mother. He was quiet for another moment. For what it's worth, he said, I believe you. And I don't blame you for what you did. Not one bit. His validation meant more to me than he could ever know. It was a small island of sanity in a sea of family drama. The third conversation was not a conversation at all. It was a series of increasingly desperate voicemails from Liam. The first few were angry, full of threats and accusations. Then they became pleading. Anna, please, he said in one message, his voice cracking. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But you can't just leave me with nothing. I have nothing. Chloe left me. The money is gone. I'm ruined. He talked about the 8 years we had spent together. He tried to appeal to the memory of the love we once shared. But it was too late. The man on the voicemail was a stranger to me. His pleas fell on deaf ears. I saved the messages as evidence, and I never once called him back. The fallout for them was swift and brutal. Just as Liam had said, Chloe left him the moment the money disappeared. Her glamorous lifestyle was funded by my future, and when that funding was cut off, so was her affection. I saw through her social media that she was already on the search for her next benefactor. Liam was left alone, with a mountain of debt he had accumulated and no secret fortune to pay it off. He had to sell his car. He had to move out of our home, which I was awarded in the divorce settlement, and move back in with his mother. Eleanor got her wish. She had her precious son back under her roof. But he was not the triumphant, wealthy man she had envisioned. He was a broken, bitter, and broke man. Their relationship, from what Mark told me, became toxic. She resented him for his failure, and he resented her for her constant judgment. They were trapped together in a prison of their own making, their shared dream having turned into a nightmare. As for me, I started over. I used a portion of the money to buy a small, beautiful apartment in a new part of the city. An apartment that was all mine. I paid for it in cash. The feeling of signing those papers, of owning my own home without a mortgage, without a man, was the most liberating feeling of my life. The rest of the money I invested wisely, with the help of a financial advisor Ms. Davis recommended. It was my security, my future. A future that I would build for myself, on my own terms. Months later, life had settled into a new, peaceful rhythm. I was thriving in my job. I had reconnected with old friends. I was healing. One evening, I was sitting on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. I thought about Liam and Eleanor. I did not feel anger anymore. I did not feel hatred. I just felt a distant, clinical pity. They had been so consumed by their greed and their arrogance that they had destroyed themselves. They had tried to make me small. They had tried to leave me with nothing. I took a sip of my wine and smiled. They had underestimated the quiet, sensible woman who clipped coupons and paid the bills. They had mistaken my patience for weakness. They had forgotten that the person who manages the details is the person who holds the real power. They wanted me to have nothing. Now, nothing was all they had left. And I had everything.